Hey, what's up guys, Will here for GSM Arena. This is the new Poco F3, and it offers high-level features for much less money than a true flagship. Still, it's more expensive than the other Poco phone we've seen this year, the X3 Pro, so is that extra premium worth it? Let's find out in our full review. The Poco F3 is a sleek-looking phone made from Gorilla Glass 5, with a reflective back that curves into the aluminum frame. This is a look that we're more accustomed to from a flagship device, not a mid-ranger. We have our Poco F3 in the night black finish, which appears more like gray depending on the lighting. It's quite glossy and eye-catching, though keeping it clean of fingerprints is a constant battle. Compared to the Poco X3 Pro, the Poco F3 is lighter and thinner and arguably more premium, since the X3 is made from plastic. But the weird thing is that the cheaper one has IP53 rated water resistance, and you don't get that on the F3. One clear upgrade on the F3 is the display. The 1080p resolution is the same, but this is an AMOLED compared to the X3 Pro's LCD, and it has a fast 120Hz refresh rate, which you won't find on last year's Poco F2 Pro. The high refresh rate means that swiping and scrolling on the screen looks super smooth, and the refresh rate is adaptive to your content to save energy. It can dial down to as low as 30 Hz. There's also a super fast 360Hz touch sampling rate too, higher even than some dedicated gaming phones, so the responsiveness of this screen is pretty exceptional. With a pixel density of 395 ppi, content looks plenty sharp here, and the tiny punch hole for the selfie cam isn't too distracting. There's also HDR10+ certification here too. Brightness is plenty. We measured 510 nits with the slider and a boost to around 710 nits in auto mode when in bright conditions. And depending on the color settings you choose, colors can be very accurate here. One thing that's always nice to see on a mid-ranger is a pair of stereo speakers, like you get here on the Poco F3. There's one bottom-firing speaker and the other doubles as the phone's earpiece. While they aren't very well balanced, together they are quite loud, scoring very good on our charts. You get Dolby Atmos support, and the sound quality is nice, with decent mids and highs, and even some bass. There is no 3.5mm jack on the Poco F3 though, so you need to use a dongle to plug in traditional headphones, but at least you get one included in the box. It's strange that Poco has left out a feature as popular as a headphone jack, but that's not all that's missing here. You also won't find expandable storage or NFC support. Waking up and unlocking the Poco F3 can be done with a side-mounted fingerprint reader which doubles as the power button. It's super fast and accurate. The interface of the phone is the Poco version of Xiaomi's MIUI 12 over Android 11. This is pretty much the same interface we've seen on all of Xiaomi's phones since last year, but with a different Poco theme and icons. Another difference on the Poco version is that the app drawer is always on. You can't disable it to keep your apps on the home screen if you wanted to. The drawer will automatically organize your apps into different categories. One special feature on MIUI 12 is that you can opt to split your notification shade into a separate notification center and a control center. Like pretty much any Xiaomi phone, you get an IR blaster, which allows you to use the phone to control certain appliances with. And I should mention that we did encounter the occasional ad or recommendation within certain system apps, like the app scanner and the file manager. But there is a way to disable them in the settings. The UI and pretty much everything else runs super smoothly thanks to the Poco F3's flagship-grade Snapdragon 870 chipset. It's what you get if you take last year's top chipset and sprinkle in some higher CPU clock speed. This is enough for the Poco F3 to hold its own performance-wise against much more expensive devices. And even though it doesn't quite match the highest tier Snapdragon 888, in real-life use this difference is pretty small. Even the heaviest games run without a hitch. And we didn't notice any problems with the thermals either. Plus, there is support for 5G network connectivity here, which the Poco X3 Pro doesn't have. The Poco F3 has a 4520 mAh battery. This isn't small, but these days, most mid-range phones, including the Poco X3 Pro, are packing at least 5000. There's no need to worry though. Battery life on the F3 is still very impressive. It was able to score an excellent endurance rating of 114 hours in our proprietary tests. Charging speed is pretty fast too. The bundled 33-watt fast charger was able to take the battery from 0 to 67% in half an hour. Up until this point, the features I've talked about are pretty much flagship grade, but next are the cameras, which are where Poco had to cut some corners. There are 3 cameras on the back, a 48-megapixel quad-bare main camera and an 8-megapixel ultra-wide, which are the same as what you'd get on the Poco X3 Pro, and a 5-megapixel telemacro cam for close-up shots. Photos from the main cam come out at 12 megapixels, and they're good for a mid-ranger. You get enough resolved detail, great contrast, and natural-looking colors and dynamic range. However, fine details and textures look overprocessed or smeared when you zoom in. There's no telephoto camera here like you'd get on a more expensive phone, so zoom is done through a digital crop and upscale with some loss in quality. Portraits are okay, though we've seen some better results from other mid-rangers that have a depth sensor. While the bokeh effect looks nice, the separation can get thrown off by messy hair. 8-megapixel photos from the ultra-wide camera are just average. Dynamic range is okay and the colors are realistic, but these are soft, maybe due to the noise reduction. The 5-megapixel telemacro camera has autofocus and can shoot from between 3 and 7 centimeters away from the subject. These close-up photos are okay, but nothing special. They're somewhat soft and average in detail, with rather dull colors. Now let's have a look at the photos taken in low-light situations. After dark, the main camera takes good photos with nicely balanced exposure, well-preserved colors, and good contrast. With night mode enabled, each shot takes about 2 seconds to process. The benefits you get here aren't huge. The overall photo is a bit sharper and brighter, and you get a little more detail in the shadows. Low-light photos taken with the ultra-wide camera aren't good. They are dark and low in detail, and extremely soft too. The ultra-wide does support night mode, and with it on, the photos are bright and more usable. However, the detail is pretty much wiped out by the noise reduction. Selfies are taken with a 20-megapixel front-facing cam, and they're just alright. They aren't that sharp, and the detail level is mediocre, but at least the colors are nice, and contrast is great. Videos can be captured with the main camera in up to 4K resolution at 30 FPS. The detail level is just average, but the colors are accurate, contrast is excellent, and the dynamic range is wide enough. The ultra-wide cam can shoot only in up to 1080p resolution, but the quality here is good. There's enough detail, nice colors and contrast, and great dynamic range. Both the main and the ultra-wide cams support electronic stabilization in all resolutions and frame rates to smooth out your handheld footage. However, although the telemacro cam can record 1080p video, there's no stabilization here, which is a bummer. So that's the Poco F3. It brings a ton of high quality features, like that premium looking glass design, an excellent 120Hz AMOLED screen, nice stereo speakers, excellent battery life and fast charging, and flagship grade performance with 5G support. And even though the cameras here aren't flagship level, they still provide some decent quality during the day. Overall, this offers some of the best value we've seen in a mid-ranger lately, but is it the better choice compared to the cheaper Poco X3 Pro? This is tough because you don't get the headphone jack, expandable storage, and splash proofing that you would get on the other model. But if those aren't a priority for you, I would recommend the F3 just for its nicer display. Thanks for watching guys, stay safe and see you on the next one.